Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the U World Order Podcast Showcase. I'm super excited for today's episode. We're speaking with Jessica Cole. She's a habit mindset coach specializing in freedom from alcohol. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and share about what I do. Thank you so much for having me.
I am really excited about this conversation. We had a little bit of time to chat beforehand, so I'm excited to have you just jump in and tell us your story of where you came from, what got you to this point, going into this path of coaching, and why you're doing it. And I'm really excited. So why don't you just jump in and just tell us your story?
Sure. Well, I became addicted to alcohol, plain and simple, really. And I think my story really began 5 years before even drinking alcohol, when out of love, a family member told me that I was already an alcoholic. And when I heard that, I internalized, okay, well, the only thing I really know about alcohol is, one, it's just something that everybody does when they grow up, and two, it's not necessarily a great thing to be, because alcohol also caused a lot of pain for a lot of people I know. So I started internalizing myself as something that was wrong even before I even had my first drink. And so I'm a rebel personality. So of course, when I was 17, 18, I had my first experiment with alcohol, basically to prove that I could drink and not be an alcoholic. And I didn't really start drinking regularly until I was 21. And within 3 years, I knew that alcohol was ruining my life. And yet it was terrifying to even think about not doing it. And so it's just incredible how addictive alcohol is, and also how the stigma and the labels around the alcohol culture can play a role in keeping someone stuck. And for me, it just made it hard to reach out and just talk about it. And when I found, so I'm a This Naked Mind certified coach. And when I found This Naked Mind, the idea that we aren't the problem, the truth that we aren't the problem, the alcohol is the problem, that there's nothing wrong with me, it helped me open up just a new possibility of, what if, free, not just freedom from alcohol, but freedom from the beliefs I have about alcohol. Like, what would that make possible for me? And I started on that journey. And when I did find freedom, not just from not drinking, but really just not wanting to, I didn't stop drinking because I had to or because I couldn't drink. I stopped because it just aligns better with how I feel about myself. And the feeling of freedom and being fully authentically myself, and how uncomfortable it was to talk about, that's what inspired me to become a coach myself, because I thought, if I can be that one person for just one person that feels safe talking to me about it, this feeling of freedom is just worth it's worth me making myself uncomfortable, or leaning into that discomfort, because that's really where the power lies, is within our own ability to just lean into new beliefs that we might be limiting ourselves with.
Right.
So that's kind of a little bit of my backstory without getting into like too many, details, but really moving forward, it's just this is a new approach to habits, specifically with alcohol, that's compassion based. We don't need to label ourselves, we don't need to blame ourselves, because this is something that we're talking about, an addictive drug that anybody who uses it will become addicted to if they drink enough. So it's not anything wrong with the person. So yeah, that's a little bit about my backstory.
No, I love this. And the reason why I love this is because I think it's one of those topics that tends to, I don't know if I'm saying this correct way, kind of just on the back burner, because you like when you think about something being addictive, you immediately, your brain goes to something harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
A harder drug or a harder addictive, something that someone's doing. So
Mm-hmm.
alcohol tends to take that back burner, and it's almost more accepted because it's just, well, it's just alcohol, you know?
Absolutely.
And I it is, I personally don't drink for my own reasons. I'm happy to share why
Mm-hmm.
I don't during this conversation as well. But I feel like as we become adults, at first, right? So when you're young, it's like, ooh, this thing, and you just kind of went over that. It's just thing that you want to do, and you feel grown up if after you first try it, and then when
Mm-hmm.
in my states, obviously it's 21, and it's after that, it's like, okay, now I've done it. But it's that changeover of when it becomes a necessity and when we become adults and people start using it as an escape.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that it's starting to become more of a conversation because it is such an issue. And I read that you target, you try and help moms, and
Yes.
mothers. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I really wanted to reach other women that were like me and they were where I was. And, you made some amazing points. Like, one, our journeys are so unique. And yet there can also be this, a fear to talk about it, because there's so much stigma around alcohol if we question whether we even want to drink or not, because it just doesn't make us feel good, or because for whatever reason it's like, oh, first we might even think, oh no, but then I'm going to have to admit that I have a problem, or other people are going to think I have a, it's like, how did this drug that really you know doesn't have any actual physical benefit for us get put on a pedestal? And it's, you might also recognize that we don't hear about drugs, including alcohol. We hear drugs or alcohol as if it
Right.
isn't the same thing.
Right,
So I mean,
exactly.
that's just a really simple, like, oh, like we're separating it, but it's really one of the most dangerous drugs out there. But so specifically for moms, for me, my goodness, like, and our relationships with alcohol can change, and evolve over time. And as we use alcohol for different reasons, it becomes a story. It becomes, that's what can make um not drinking harder. It's because it's not just about the act of drinking, it's about the stories behind them and the things that we're drinking alcohol for.
Right.
And so it changed for me when I became a mom, but the so much responsibility, so much decision making, never mind just being exhausted. The decision, I was taking care of so many other people. The decision at the end of the day, whether or not to drink, I just didn't have the energy to make. Not only that, but I had created this reality where my, drinking at the end of the day was the only me time that I had. And so I was chasing this me time, and I just ended up, missing the most precious moments that meant the most to me, to do something that was taking me away from myself more than anything. So it was this I need me time, but I was doing something that just made the real me disappear. So I really wanted to reach other moms who didn't have a lot of time, are constantly doing other things for other people. And, we need to focus on ourselves. I've been saying like, oh, mommy needs a break, not booze, because we're always told like, oh, mommy needs wine. I mean, it's like, what we need is like a break. Um, and speaking of that, giving ourselves a break for choosing to drink, that's a huge part of this too, because it makes sense that we would go to something like alcohol.
Right.
We can just also, we have this opportunity to ask our bodies what we really need in that moment, what something we can do that can nourish us rather than take us away from our unique, amazing beauty that we are without anything, but also something that feeds our bodies and our spirit, essentially.
Right.
So that was a long answer.
Yeah. No, no, it's good because it's true because it's along the lines of like kind of like how I feel about it when you talk about it out loud, right? When we don't talk about it, you have all these thoughts in your head like drinking's not that big a deal. I grew up seeing my mother and my grandmother and and the men in the family with a beer in their hand and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
when you actually think about the purpose of alcohol in any situation is to bring down your reaction time, essentially relaxing. So we're thinking that's a good thing because relaxing is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, but in my mind, and the reason I stopped was because now I'm lucky I did not have a problem. Number one was calorie, and it was calories. It was just unnecessary calories for me. And I
Yeah.
kind of like went into like the health and fitness kind of angle of it. Um, but also like it felt a little nerve-wracking that it took like my reality out of like I felt like I wasn't all the way there. And when I started had to, I also have three children. I read that you have three children. And I would think these things, not in a neurotic way, but I would think, wow, if I have a glass of wine or a beer at night or whenever, like, what if something happened? Like, what if I had to get my child to, to seek help or well, like, what if my daughter called at that moment and I'm already, a glass or two glasses deep of my relaxing, right? So I started thinking about that. And then the biggest reason for me was that, I get chronic migraines and it just wasn't making me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm grateful that it started to not make me feel well. It wasn't like it began to be like not worth it to me that it was causing headaches or not worth it to me that the day after I
Mm-hmm.
was feeling like junk, and while maybe the night before, the day before at a barbecue or whatnot, yes, okay, I felt relaxed and I remember getting really chatty when I was, had a beer or
Yep.
two or wine. But then the next day it just was like my body would feel drained and I would just feel sickly no matter how much I drank. And I was never a big drinker and I was
Mm-hmm.
never a big drinker when I was growing up. I was never a partier. I was never, thank goodness. Um, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
the way our society is now, I don't know if you find this, it becomes almost just more accepted. And you're right, when we start grouping it in that category of an addictive drug,
Mm-hmm.
look at it totally different.
Absolutely.
You find that it's like so much more accepted, so people just like do it, and that and addiction kind of like creeps up on you then.
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, it's not just accepted, but I mean, it's pushed on us. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the advertising for alcohol. It's the biggest advertising industry ever. And, and so we forget that we think it relaxes us, we think it makes us more fun, and there's a reason for there's a reason for that because it's literally everywhere. But like, honestly, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's so um and I don't know if you came up with if you experienced anything from friends or family like, oh really, why aren't you like, almost like you had to, it it brings me out of the moment, like that I don't want to worry about, even when maybe it wasn't any alcohol that I had that day or the day before that maybe caused, like, it's like I would always think I would feel so much guilt, just thinking like, what if I didn't have that drink yesterday? Would I have done something different? Would it have been better? Like just that mental, it takes up so much brain space.
Yeah.
um Never mind how amazing it does feel to know that I can safely bring my kid somewhere, or help when I'm needed. Like that's huge. And we don't hear that 20 minutes of super high amounts of artificial dopamine that we get that makes us feel relaxed, in turn, for each drink is 3 to 4 hours of stress hormones rushing through your body to try and save you from
Yeah.
that, that relaxed feeling that you got for 20 minutes. So we think it relaxes us, but it really puts us in a state of intense stress and depression. And that's just from one drink. Never mind, like we don't get REM sleep. And so we're also on top of it exhausted. So you have 3 kids, you know how exhausting it
Mm-hmm.
is in general. And so adding, I was sleeping maybe 6 hours, maybe because I've had a child sleeping with me for the last 7 years. On top of that, when I drank, it just what I mean, I was running on literal fumes.
Right.
And it's just sometimes, I used to think, how can I do this without alcohol? But now I'm like, how did I do it while I was drinking? I don't know. And
Right.
so, but so much of it is that mindset of, oh, alcohol relaxes me. Well, is that really true? You know, um, I can't mother without relaxing with a drink. Is that really true? Like just being willing to question and pay attention to how we really do feel, and then trying to find a way that feels better. So, so I love that.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny because we talk about, my children are they're not, I mean, they're teenagers now. So it's a whole nother level. So like if
Yeah.
if ever a time was, if I was in that cliche, I need a drink era, it's now. I have one that's almost fully driving, and I have two that are just like a year younger than that. And it's stressful, but I feel like it would just, for me it was, and my choice was like that impedes my focus. And now more than that, obviously when they were younger and they were running around and they were more self-reliant on me, yes, I felt I need to be like, I need to be at my best. I need to be like on point. And and I had all the stresses in life at that time. Before I stopped drinking, I was in a very poor marriage and things like that. So it's like I couldn't depend on, but I still used it as a crutch, and I did
Mm-hmm.
use it every now and then. Um, but I think what's funny is that we're always talking about peer pressure for the younger generation, right? The
Mm-hmm.
teenagers and going to a party, and what would your child do if they were offered, alcoholic drink? I think as adults, the peer pressure to drink is just at a whole nother level. And you did touch on that a little bit. And I do recall, I think my family's just used to it. But oh no, thanks. But I think a lot of people who may not know, me personally, if I say, oh no, 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 like if I'm at a work function, for instance, the last time I was at a work function, I went on a business trip and everybody was coming from different places and we were all sitting down and having dinner and everyone was having cocktails and I ordered, my I'm an iced tea fanatic. So I was like, I'll just have like, a sweet tea. Oh, you're not home. You're not with your kids and, let loose. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's great. I don't. And I think they automatically go to like, you have like an issue, and I always feel like, oh, I'm not drinking because like, I'm not drinking. I always feel like I have to explain myself. So do you
Mm-hmm.
find that as adults, we're still in that state of like pressure of explaining
Oh
like
yeah.
why we're not drinking or, and things like that? It's just it's such a funny dynamic to me that like we're still
Absolutely. Yeah.
having to like explain.
Absolutely. And it's just so interesting because I mean everyone I mean, everyone is so unique, but how does that, I mean, some, if you have someone who sees you enjoying being, say you're on a vacation or being away from home, and you're actually enjoying the reality of being there and feeling everything without alcohol. It's like, you know, um, it's, I mean, that is something to that's like, that's
Right. That should be the
incredible.
positive. That should be like, yeah, like I'm
Like,
all here right now. Like,
so it's
yeah.
like, in reality, it's not really about what you're doing. I think it brings up what other people feel about what they're doing. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, don't you want a drink? It's like, oh, where maybe the question is, do I really want this drink? And maybe I kind of want what she has. And I think, um without, it's just like I said, it's just that, always questioning our own thoughts and beliefs that come up. um, and also realizing that judgments from other people are probably things that they're really thinking about their own choices. And
That's
so,
so interesting. That's
yeah.
so interesting. So we're so focused on worrying about what other people think, but we don't really realize that maybe they're going at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when denial comes into play. And
Yeah,
it's almost like a defense mechanism, like almost like, how dare you not drink, and are
exactly.
they looking bad at me because I am drinking? And I don't look at anybody like that. Like I don't think
Exactly.
about it. I think about myself and my own reality, and I'm doing
Yep.
what's, good for me. It's just so interesting because
Yeah.
again, it's becomes this thing that people are afraid to talk about it. So
Mm-hmm.
the individuals that you speak to, you know, are they in denial that they have an issue? Are they wanting to and don't know how to get out of it? Like, what are you finding in your coaching?
I'm I'm finding that, a lot of the folks that I speak to seem to resonate with my story. So they're in this place where they know that it's not something they really want for themselves anymore, but they understand, but they're not sure why they're still doing it. It's like, I don't want this substance anymore, but why is it so hard to stop? And how can it not be me? How can it not
Mhm.
be something wrong with me?
Right.
Because giving ourselves that compassion and understanding that this is the way that alcohol works, on top of the pressure and the judgment from friends, family, society that says this is something you're supposed to be able to do the right way, understanding that there isn't really a right way to do it. And whether you drink every day or once a month and it just doesn't feel good, like, it's okay to question it and dig into the reasons why you're drinking in the
Mhm.
first place. Because when we can let go of that blame towards ourselves, that's when we can release some of that pressure that's really keeping us attached to that behavior in the first place. So I'm
Yeah, like
finding,
maybe
yeah,
it's not the idea, like it's not the drink itself, but it's just the idea of
yeah,
drinking. It's just so interesting when you actually put it into a conversation. Because
yeah.
like I'm thinking of like little stories. Like I have my cousin is visiting from Israel, and I invited her and her family over, just like an impromptu barbecue. And I don't even have it in my household. So like when I have a gathering, it's just kind of known that like I don't drink alcohol. My family doesn't drink alcohol. I'm not, I just don't serve it. That's not part of our life, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
if anybody does want to, um, it's not banned from my home, but it's just, if you want to bring it, you bring it. So she said, oh, I'll bring some, do you need anything? And, we're talking about hamburger buns, all that kind of things.
Yep.
She goes, I want to bring some beers. And I said, sure, fine. I said, we don't it just, have, and I don't have a problem saying it anymore because I don't have an issue. And I said, no, it's fine, great. Bring, you bring for yourselves. We don't, we don't drink and this and that. And she was like, oh, is it okay if I even bring it? Like it would, yeah, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. So even
Yep.
still, like there's still, and I think it's like a nervousness,
Right.
or maybe they're afraid, maybe she was afraid that I was judging her because she wanted to bring, you know,
Exactly. Yes.
alcohol or something
Right.
like that. Like she needed it. And it's, I don't even think about that. I'm worried about my own focus. That's enough.
Yes. Yeah. It's real and it's there. And just that, sometimes we don't even, and also how amazing is it to really have alcohol be an afterthought? For me, I didn't know if that would ever be possible for me.
Right.
And then yeah, it's that assumption that just if you don't drink this substance that, there's this fly flying around me, that that makes it not okay for me to, or it's just, yeah, it's just that there's just so much judgment around this substance. And that feeling um of discomfort, like I think that can stop someone from reaching out. It stopped me from, I think, reaching out, because I was labeled something so young. I had this strong, like, I can never, I would never, I just wouldn't label myself anything. But it did make it hard to reach out. And so that's really one of the things, like I said, inspired me to become a coach, is to just like start normalizing the conversation. You
Right.
can choose whatever you want that's right for you. If you're at peace with any of your, that's the goal, is to just feel authentic and at peace with our realities, with our decisions, I think. And and so yeah, I think that's.
And I think I find it quite amazing also that you could also be talking to people that maybe don't realize the seriousness maybe of
Yeah.
an issue that they may have, and how rewarding it must be to, speak to somebody and help somebody through clarity and comfort to know, okay, yes, while I didn't realize, maybe it's denial, maybe it's, but I feel like something's off. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty powerful thing of what you do, particularly because I think because of all the societal things like around, a lot of people think, well, I'm just doing what everyone else does. So like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Another thought I was having, so when you really, really think about it, like, yeah, when you talk about, okay, all right, I have some drinks, but like I'm not into hard drugs and I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that and all these kind of things. When you really think about it, the consequences from
Mm-hmm.
alcoholism and alcohol intake, I feel like is so high. Because people are so they have that inability to make decisions and be completely focused and clear minded, that they're getting into cars and they're getting into
Mm-hmm.
situations, that are putting their lives at risk and others at risk. And, I think that's a huge importance as well, obviously on a much higher scale of someone that has an issue.
Yeah.
Um,
It is scary, and it's, I don't like to just go out there and, like, bash alcohol. It's like, not like, I am not, it's not about like being a hypocrite, or it's hard. We don't hear enough about, young men, young women. I think it's like the rate of liver disease and cirrhosis and people dying from what some people would consider, like, regular, daily drinking, or in like 30s, in their 30s. Like, it's like up by like 14% or something in my age group. And the links to breast cancer, and here we are promoting mimosas and mammograms. It's like, it's
yeah,
scary that it's
yeah,
so used as something um that is just so accepted, but it's really dangerous. And so it helps motivate me to just like, and it's I've been alcohol free for over a year. I'm a coach, and it's funny how sometimes I get these waves of discomfort talking. I'm like, wow, like, it's like, wow, like, we just need to talk about this, because
yeah,
people might also not really know, like, how dangerous it can really be.
yeah. So I think that
Yeah.
you creating that space for conversation
Mm-hmm.
and clarity and to really talk about something
Yes.
that is, like you said, like it's just kind of widely accepted. And,
exactly.
you know,
Speaking of creating a safe space, I do have a free online community, which I'm so excited about. We've been building it over the last few months. And I actually do a free a group coaching call once a month. And it's like a private online forum. It's off of Facebook. So it's more private, but just as incredible with connection. We have live connection calls. So that's the Present AF Club. So it's presentaf.club. And I just really wanted to create a space and make it accessible for everybody and anybody who's just curious. You don't have to be alcohol free, but it's just a safe place to have these conversations and hear from other people who are just want to be curious without judgment and have these types of conversations while learning some tools and having the opportunity to share live with other people or with me as a coach. So I wanted to mention that.
No, absolutely. I love that. And I love spaces like that. And I think, that's a benefit of our society right now, is that we're creating more and more spaces like this where people can go, and whether, it's anonymous or not, these are private things that people have a hard time accepting or coming to terms with, or maybe they just need a little advice, or maybe they're struggling with a family member and they need to know how to deal with that. So that's really, really wonderful. How else can people get in touch with you to kind of chat with you, contact you, and explore your coaching?
Well, my website is alcoholrewired.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at alcohol.rewired, and Facebook is Alcohol Rewired. And I do have a Instagram page for our Present AF Club. And that's also a collaboration with she's my twin sister. She's 8 years alcohol free. And she is also a yin yoga instructor, a mindfulness and lifestyle occupational therapist. So we combine presence and meditation with my alcohol coaching and resources as kind of like, it's just a way to really embody this practice, bringing it into the body. So that's the Present AF Club. And I think I covered that. So Instagram, Facebook, and yes, Alcohol Rewired is my website. And I'm also listed on the This Naked Mind coaching page there as well.
Awesome. I love it. I love what you're doing. I love that you're creating this conversation and also creating this space for people, a lot of people that, maybe just have been too afraid, or maybe didn't realize, or even if it opens a few eyes, during the things that you're saying. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a fantastic conversation. Opened my eyes a lot personally. I really appreciate you coming on with us today.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing, and really just wanted to leave that message with, like, we all have everything we need inside of us to really get the dream that we hope for ourselves. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.